And can I introduce our first speaker, Tom Cochrane from the Auckland University of Technology. Tom is expert in all those things that I think I should know more about, but I don't. Mobile learning, Web 2, communities of practice, and has been working particularly on ways in which you can use technology to bridge formal and informal learning environments. Tom, welcome to Melbourne.
I'd like to start off by seeing how many phones people have got. So if you've got a mobile phone, I'd like you to take it out and hold it up. And what I'm going to do is take a photo. And because of the orientation of the room, I'm going to have to do a panorama. So just hold that for a bit, because I'm going to do this panorama here. Okay, has anyone got more than one phone? Has anyone not got a phone? One person. Okay. Well, as you might have guessed, I'm going to be talking about mobile devices and social media. And I did my PhD in mobile and Web 2 and how it can impact pedagogy. And we've done over 45 different projects. So I just want to talk about a couple of those today. But just want to show you some stats to start with. 96% of the world's population actually owns a mobile phone. And that's 121%, 124% of the developed world, and something like 86% of the developing world. And most of the new connections, 3/4 of the new connections are in the developing world. So people throughout the world have mobile phones. And what I've got here is a QR code. Has anyone, I guess you've probably seen these around the place, hopefully. Yes, nodding, no, one or two, okay. And what I'd like to do is get Joyce to decode this for us, and then see if she can log on to my laptop and show us what it is. So this is a QR code. It's actually a link to some notes. So if you have a camera phone with a QR code reader, you could scan this code and that will give you a link to the notes that I'll be working off today. So it's coming up slowly, network's a little bit slow. And effectively what it is a link back to itself. It's a link to the page of notes. So from there you can see all the different links of stuff I'm going to be talking about today.
But now that I've got this, I can share it.
You can, and you can even tweet it. That would be great. Thank you, Joyce. Okay. So I really just wanted to show you just a very quick example of perhaps how some of this technology can even change interaction in the classroom. And mine's come back online, so just bring mine back up.
Yep.
And if you actually log off, Joyce, thanks, then I can get the screen back. Cool. So just to show you the graph that I was talking about before. This is from the International Telecommunications Union, and this is for stats for the end of last year, beginning of this year. You can see basically the world average is 96% of people have a mobile phone, and in the developed world, Europe, etc., it's over 121%, and even Africa is 69%, and growing very, very rapidly. So I guess what this means is, what can we use this technology for in teaching and learning? That's my interest. How can we do things that we couldn't do before? How can we engage people? I guess what really happens when you start thinking about mobile learning is invariably, how can I show my PowerPoint to all my students on their small screen? Or can I do a podcast of my lecture so they can watch me and get bored no matter where they are, and view a video on a really tiny screen? And I guess for me that's not really good use of the technology, because all we're doing is replicating what we've done before. So I just want to show you a little video just to get you thinking. So what's the moral of the story? Any ideas? Beans are not for astronauts, but in the mobile world, I guess it's really, some things are appropriate for mobile learning and some aren't. So I guess it's looking at what are mobile devices good at, and the wireless network here is a little bit on the dodgy side, unfortunately. But obviously they have certain characteristics. They've got a mobile phone, you've got a communications device, you've got a microphone, you've got a camera, you've got a smartphone, you've got a GPS, so you can geotag where you are. You can use Google Maps. How many people use Google Maps on their phone? Yeah, most people. So these days, businesses like TomTom and Navman are struggling because everyone's got a smartphone and they don't need to buy a dedicated GPS device for their car. They just pull up Google Maps on their phone and away you go. But obviously they've got built microphones, they've got speakers, they've got cameras built in as well. And what I want to demonstrate is another technology here, and I'm going to get Joyce to help me again. This is a little app which is called Chirp, and Chirp's really interesting because what it does is use the microphone on your phone to communicate. It's not sort of an unusual concept to use something that's built into your microphone. But I'm going to try and see if I can use the photo that I took earlier. And it's just uploading. So you got Chirp running there, Joyce? Okay. And let's put this here. Okay. So Joyce now has that photo and she's going to download it and then show us on the screen what the photo is. There it is. And that's actually a panorama. You should be able to sort of zoom around a bit and see the rest of it. But okay, doesn't like it on the Chirp, didn't like the whole photo. So just a way of showing you that you can actually interact in different ways. So you could think of maybe inside a lecture room, you've got 400 students there. Instead of saying, I want you to go to this URL to go and look up the notes for today, you can just chirp it. And they've all got their phone running. They can get instantly that link as an audio link. Because it's audio, you can transmit that over any device that does audio, over radio, over television. And you've logged off again? Great. Yeah. Excellent. So using the types of technology that these devices are good at. So what I want to show you is just some examples from a couple of global projects that we've been running. And just really the reasons for this. I don't know if you've come across the SEMAR framework by Putin Dodura. That's how you say his name. But it's really looking at ways of using technology by substitution. Basically, you're doing the same thing but new technology. By augmentation, you're doing something slightly different with it. Modifying what you're doing. In other words, you're doing things you haven't done before. Or redefining. Getting to the point where you're actually doing whole new ideas, new types of activities. Perhaps getting students involved in field work and out of the classroom, being able to bridge that experience into the physical classroom. Redefining assessment activities. Redefining, instead of having an essay, maybe it now becomes a multimedia curation tool using Storify or something like that. And what we've done is put together a framework. Now this framework is a little bit hard to see here, but I've got links to it and I'll show you those links in a moment. But this is part of the reason. This is a photo I took in 2007. And if you have a look, you can see how many devices this guy has. He's got a little mobile projector. You can see it's projecting onto the table there. That's what's read on his fingers. Is it sensing where his fingers are, and that's inputting via Bluetooth into his PDA. He's composing an email, and he's then linking via Bluetooth to his Palm Trio smartphone, which was the smartphone at that time, and then sending that off as an email. And at the same time, he was listening to his iPod Touch, because the iPhone hadn't arrived in Australia then. And because I'd asked if I could take his photo, he took the earbuds out, so that's why they weren't in his ears there. And at the same time, he's having a slushie. So these are the types of activities that potentially your students are going to be actually involved in. Multitasking, using a variety of devices, the devices they own. So we're sort of looking at how to leverage these types of devices. and a couple of projects that we've been running. So the first link there really takes you to the framework that we've been developing. And for those of you who don't have a QR code reader, that's the short link to it if you wanted to write that down really quickly. So it's is.gd/A, and it is case sensitive, capital E, capital F, WR7. So that's the short link to these notes. And really that just goes over the framework, and I don't want to talk about that too much today. That can be your homework. You can look at the, as you can see, there's quite a bit of stuff there on the framework, which is really about doing things differently with technology. It's about rethinking pedagogy. It's not just about technology is cool. It's about what can we do to reinvent teaching and learning and using technology to achieve that. So I just want to quickly show you a couple of case studies where we've tried to do this. And here's another QR code. So if you do have a QR code ready, you might want to scan that quickly. And below it is the short code. I'll zoom in on that in a second. Just give people a few seconds to scan that code if they want. It's quite interesting. QR codes really are finding their way around just about everything. If you actually just look, you'll find them on bus stops, even on the sheets on top of beds. We went to go and buy a bed, myself and my wife, about a year ago, and we were looking at different beds, and it said scan this QR code for more information. It was on top of the bed, a little throw on top of the bed. So I got my iPhone out and started scanning it, and the shop assistant came over and said, "What do you think you're doing?" I said, "I'm scanning the code so I can find out more about your bed." And she said, "Oh, I didn't even know that was there." It just looked like a fancy little doodle. So here's the short code, is.gd/capital Q, capital D, capital R, small g, 25. So we've been doing a couple of projects, and one we've called Moco 360, which is mobile collaboration around the world. So we're looking at 6 different universities around the world, in Auckland, in the UK, in Colombia, and France as well. And how mobile devices can actually enable us to do that, because we're in different time zones, and being able to communicate is quite a problem. So we need to do that asynchronously, and a tool like Twitter really works to be able to do that. So using these types of tools is a powerful way of communicating for our students, giving them a collaborative experience that they would never have had, a virtual cultural exchange with students working in the UK, Spain, France, Colombia. So we've set up a Google Plus community, and there's a great mobile app for Google Plus, so you can check the community on your phone. So I'm just putting it up here on my iPad, and this becomes a bit of a home base for this project. Now, the reason we're using Google Plus and not the learning management system, which is Blackboard at our institution, is that each institution has a different learning management system. And each institution only allows students to log in if they pay their fees and they get a password. So imagine doing that with 6 institutions that are all around the world. It'd just be impossible. So using a common open platform like Google Plus that they can all access on their mobile device makes much more sense. So instead of an LMS, we use Google Plus, and you can see here some of the activity. That's Laurent in France, skiting at his view out the window. And we found that in Spanish, does anyone speak Spanish here? No? Unfortunately, in Spanish, moco means snot. So it was interesting that our fellows from Colombia said it means we're going to stick together. So they didn't really mind. So we use a Google Plus community, and it becomes a hub for communication. Other tools that we use are WordPress Blog. And this is more sort of the public face of what we're doing. So it's kind of like the published material from the project. And I'm just going live here to our WordPress blog, which is why it's going a little bit slow. It's probably because you're all checking all the links on your phones there. And you can see some of the projects that are being blogged about. This particular one is called Here and There, which is a partnership between University of Salford and the University in Columbia. And 2 students there are co-creating a mobile film and then sharing it. And they're just talking about the process and how they did that. And they've shared that with everyone else as a blog post on the WordPress blog, like a tutorial. and you can go down and see some more of the activity there. So I know my time's probably racing through here, but I just want to show you a few of these examples. This is Tagboard, and what Tagboard allows us to do is curate social media. So it allows us to pull together a range of social media such as Google+, which is fortunate because we're using Google+, Twitter, Vine, which is a short video, 6-second video, and WhatsApp, and Instagram. So they're actually all 5 mobile-friendly social media tools that we can use and then curate that content using this page and Tagboard to bring it in, and then everyone in the project can see what everyone else has been doing because we're using this common hashtag. Now, hashtag is a user-definable descriptive term that you put into the title of a tweet or a Google Plus post or a Vine video title, etc., and then becomes searchable. And Tagboard is doing that searching for us, pulling all that content in. So you can see some of the activity that's been going on, including Joyce has made a tweet with the Moco 360 tag in it, so it's pulled it in. So a lot of the work around doing this can be done in the background by the tools themselves. It's not a whole lot more work for the lecturers involved because we use the technology to curate, to do the background work. Another thing we can do, because we're using devices that have a GPS and built into them, is we can geotag stuff, and so we can actually have a Google map. And this is particularly relevant when we're working around the world, or maybe, say, you've got architecture students that they want to geotag where they're working in the city, etc. It's really up to you as to how you use these tools, but here you can see the main participants in this project. So we've got the UK, we've got France, Columbia, and 2 universities in New Zealand. And if I click on the list there, you can see the actual points of interest, the names, and it provides links to their portfolios. So giving a sort of geographical context to this project, and that's obviously viewable on their mobile devices. And beyond that, we can actually go into Google Earth. So if we want to get this even a bit more visual, here's the same data in Google Earth, and because I've logged on to Google Earth, it's got all the maps that I have there, and if I click on the Moco 360 one, you can see the participants. If I click on one of them, Laurent, it'll take me to where that point is, which is in France. So there's Laurent in Strasbourg, and it looks like he's having fun in the middle of a forest there. It must be obviously close to where he lives in France. So it's a great way of getting a concept of where the other participants are in the world. And if I click on Laurent's actual name, I can see a link to his profile and go and check on it. Some of the other tools that we use. Here is a Twitter map, which shows any tweets that have used the geotagging. So if it's a photo, it's been geotagged. If it's a map link, any content that's been geotagged, and put the hashtag into that tweet. And then using this spreadsheet, it automatically shows us where those come from in the world. So anyone interacting in this project using Twitter, we can see where in the world they've been tweeting from. So suddenly you have context. You have real context to what you're doing. And once again, I can see that as a list. And I can see that who the most prolific tweeters are. And in most cases in this project, it's the lecturers. But there's quite a few of the students who've really taken this project on board and are right up the top of that list. So from 103 tweets from Helen, who's at Salford University, myself with 72, to the next one down with 57 as a student. And if I clicked on the links, it would show me where those are from. So that student is a product design student. Other tools that we use, Tags Explorer. And this does an analysis of Twitter. So by using these tools, I guess we can start rethinking the whole idea of what does participation in this course mean? Doesn't mean coming to a physical lecture. Doesn't mean doing the essay. Doesn't mean getting called off on the roll. Or in actual call, and in this case, does it actually mean being an active participant in this community, posting regularly, having a conversation with someone around the other side of the world on Twitter. And what this Google spreadsheet is doing is just analysing all the tweets, and there's quite a few there, as you can see, so it's going to take a little bit of time. It's a little bit slow on the iPad, it's a bit faster on a laptop, and it will give us a visual analysis of how all these tweets interrelate and who's having a conversation with who. Now, we don't have time to sort of wait for that to resolve too much, but it's just starting to come down. You can start to see some of the main nodes there. Helen, of course, who's in the UK, myself, and the other lecturers, etc. And we can turn on some of the other mentions and retweets to see who's actually replying, who's having conversation with who. Another tool that we've used is Vie Clone, which is collaborative video. With the GPS on your phone, you can have multiple perspectives on the same event and automatically create a video from that using this app called Vie Clone. So we've got a video. See if I can pull this video up as an example. This was a video created by the participants of Moco 360 all around the world. But if you click on that link, if you've managed to get the short code, you'll be able to see that video. And what it basically did was pull together videos from 47 different people around the world, taking a video and then creating this collage of right around the different parts of the world working together. So part of making this sort of stuff work is getting a technical infrastructure. That's part of our framework, is working around how to make this work technically. So we build that into the whole process and the projects, and each of the institutions make sure that their network is capable of doing this. Another tool that we've used is Vine. Has anyone come across Vine? No? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Vine is short video, it's 6 seconds. But the good thing about Vine, getting students to think creatively within 6 seconds means that they do actually have to think creatively, or else it's really boring. It also means from your perspective as a lecturer or someone marking that, you don't have to sit through half an hour of a really, really boring video. So having a whole lot of really, really short videos that are actually quite creative is a lot more liberating. And getting students to think of how can they use 6 seconds to actually communicate something. Using stop motion is what a lot of them do, and they make some really creative projects. So I guess the goal of this project was to get our students to think about collaboration and about global collaboration. How can they use their own devices to be able to do that, to collaborate? In this particular context, it was about creating mobile films, which is why we use Vine and why we use Vie Clone. Because we wanted them to experiment some of the tools that they could actually use to create a collaborative video. And then we wanted them to come up with their own project. So we gave them a bit of an experience as a group of lecturers. We invited them into the community via Google+. So we did a big hangout. Well, Hangout's like Skype. So with a hangout, you can have up to 10 connections for free. Skype have just released multiple video connections for free. You used to have to pay for it. I think about last week they finally made it freely available. And so the lecturers creating this project have been meeting together once a week over a hangout, and then we invited the students into those hangouts as well, so they could see some of the background about how their course was being developed, how the curriculum was being negotiated across all these different contexts. And then the students had a voice into that, so they could negotiate part of that. And what we wanted them to do was, once they got to know each other a little bit via these short little projects that we initiated as lecturers, was that we wanted them then to find partners around the other side of the world and create a team and create an interesting collaborative video from that. And what they did was they used Facebook. So that's what the Facebook page is. We didn't use Facebook in our teaching at all. And I've got Facebook here. Because really it's a social space. But in this particular context, it was relevant because we wanted those students to meet up socially, collaborate, and to start brainstorming their own project ideas. And you can see a few of these here. I'm just trying to find, there it is. There's a bit of a post about the Here and There video, which you saw featured on the blog, the WordPress blog. and it's just sort of saying it's done. Here's a link to the final video, and also a link to the blog so they can see how it was done. So they negotiated their projects in Facebook because all of the students have a Facebook account. But we didn't want to invade that with education because it is a social space. So when we got them to collaborate themselves, we let them use that space. And then when they needed to post stuff for assessment, etc., it had to be in one of the other tools that we defined. One of the projects is called the Force Perspective, which was really interesting. Using the fact that you've got a mobile phone or a mobile iPad camera, it takes videos quite differently to an SLR. It allows you to use perspective a whole lot more because it's a lot smaller lens. And so things that are close can look like they're a lot further away, etc. And so I'm going to attempt to see if I can show a video again. We'll see if this works. It's the video that doesn't seem to be working too well, but we'll try showing you the Force Perspective project. Looks like it might work. There we go. This is the student collaborative video that they created. So they used Facebook to get people all around the world to these Force Perspective videos and then send them to one of the person who then put them all together. That's my favourite, that one. And then what they did was they created a little video tutorial on how they did that and then shared that on their blog post. So that's a bit of a quick intro to that particular project. I've also got linked there another project, and hopefully you'll find that interesting. I think that's my presentation time. We're moving into questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Tom. I am going to call for questions, and we've got about a quarter of an hour available for questions. And just while you're gathering your thoughts on this, Tom, fascinating possibilities there. Whenever anyone talks to me about technological innovation, there's this little voice inside me that starts saying outcomes. And so I guess I'm asking, are there particular benefits that you found to student learning or outcomes as a result of any particular technologies here?
Yeah, I think what we find is that students actually become much more creative because we're working with, particularly with their own devices, their own mobile devices. They know how to use that. It's their own device. It's not a lab desktop PC. And they're using their own spaces, so they create their own YouTube channel, they create their own Vine account, they create their own Google Plus account, etc. And there's a lot more buy-in from the students because it's not something that's institutionally owned as such, and they're just doing it to get their marks or their piece of paper at the end of the course. What they're doing is they're building up their own personal profile online, their own e-portfolio, which hopefully they can then show to any prospective employer and say, hey, this is me, this is what I can do. And once they leave the institution, they can continue working and building on that. And so we find a lot more buy-in from the students, a lot more customised of the interface, etc., a lot more creativity.
Great, thanks for that. Yes, down here.
Thank you. Just building on from that question, is there a way to kind of aggregate data about participation across all of those tools that people are using to say this is how many hours this student has been active across all of these tools?
Well, yeah, using a lot of the curation tools shows us how many tweets students been doing, so you can get a number out of that, and you can say, Fred's only done 4, whereas Gabby's done 50.
Across all the tools together?
Well, it's hard to do that across all the tools. Probably we didn't want to make it hard. We didn't want to have to do a whole lot of computing. We didn't want to force lecturers who don't teach computing to have to learn code and stuff like that. So we wanted to use freely available tools. So we sourced about 4 or 5 that curate certain stuff. And then we decided, well, we'll use the tools that those tools curate. And so that becomes our toolkit. So that sort of put a bit of boundaries on what we're doing.
Right, thank you for that. Over here. Yes, it's you.
So I actually quite like the whole concept because I think there's there's the ability to actually show competency. They've got that ability to show competency because they're actually building and developing something and developing their learning. From an industry perspective, this would work really well from a higher ed, etc. From an industry perspective, what are the key challenges that you think in integrating something like that into industry learning?
It's probably similar to higher ed as well. I mean, ethics is a big thing to start with. Getting over the idea of taking a photo of people and sharing that. Where's the permission? If you're working in nursing, stuff like that. Physio, making sure photos don't identify people. So a lot of it's making that explicit with your students. Just talk about those rules, just like you do in any normal classroom experience, and making that part of the learning process is a discussion about ethics and what's appropriate and what's not in that context. In the creative arts, there's almost anything goes, so that's pretty open. But once you get into medicine, etc., that's a different story. I think the other key really is getting the lecturers on board, getting whoever the tutor is, etc. They need to be modelling the use of this technology, and that's whenever I try to present, I try to show myself doing it. I don't do a PowerPoint of slides of what we've done because that's not walking the talk. And so you've got to take a bit of risk as a lecturer and be willing to maybe do some things that are not going to work, or you need support from a community practice of people to help you with that. And that's where I come in my role as an academic advisor and a technology specialist. I'll work with lecturers, I'll provide that technology support for them, make sure the infrastructure's there, that they don't look like a muppet when they try to do something new. But if the lecturers aren't getting involved, they're not using these tools, if they're not tweeting, if they're not creating little videos, etc., then there's a disconnect between theory and practice, and the students go, well, if you're not doing it, well, there's no point, why should I?
Tom, what's the challenge on getting lecturers involved?
It's a long process, and workshops don't do that. So as an academic advisor myself, I mean, what I used to do was run a series of workshops, and lecturers would come along for an hour, 2 hours, or even up to a week, learn how to do something, and then go away and never put it into practice. So for me, it's about a shared journey. It's about creating these learning communities, about modelling a community practice. So what I'll do is I'll make a relationship with a particular lecturer. We'll set up some form of trust there so that we trust each other, and then they'll bring on board some of their colleagues from their department, and we'll work together for at least 6 months, giving them an experience of the technology, what's possible. So I'll give them iPhones, iPads, etc. They'll create their own accounts on WordPress, etc., etc. And once they're comfortable with the technology and what it can do, then we start brainstorming, well, what can we now do in your teaching practice? How can this help you with the teaching practice? So initially, it's about, well, hey, look, I can share my photos with my grandma in the UK. But then it's about, well, okay, well, what could we now do with your students? And rethinking teaching, learning strategies that are appropriate to their context. And so it's a shared journey, and each of those groups is unique because it's a different group of people, it's different context, so we don't do a one-size-fits-all. So from my perspective, it's a lot of work, but the outcomes are just so much better than a series of generic workshops and expecting people to then jump in the deep end and look silly.
Great, thanks for that. Other questions? I've got to make a decision
There's
here as to whether I can see Tom, or but at the same time I'm hiding from Berwyn and Hugh Guthrie over there. So I'm missing someone over there.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, you're missing me, Rod.
I'm
Jenny.
missing you. Sorry.
Okay. You started to explore it just there at the end, but I think one of the fundamental questions going through those examples, they seem to be examples of students who are already enrolled in courses that are very much in your frame. How can we use social media? They're exploring the boundaries. So those pilots seem to be about the converted. I guess the issue that you started to explore there in terms of taking maybe the unconverted or the people that are less technologically interested or advanced, taking them on that journey, and also exploring it in more of a standard frame, whether it be in the higher ed or in the vocational training space. So I guess I'd like to hear a little bit more about what you've done already in that space in more standard courses, if you like, rather than courses that are that are about exploring the boundaries of social media and exploring the boundaries of technology.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how does that convert, and how long does it take, and how much are the students engaged in the technology, and how much are the lecturers really driving it?
Okay. As I said, we've done over 45 projects, and they're all in different contexts. I just showed you one of the latest ones we've done, and it's a really fun project. What we're doing at the moment is we've got another project running, which is called Design Principles for Bring Your Own Device, and that's running as a national project in New Zealand, and that's running across 6 institutions in New Zealand, and different contexts from computing science to viticulture to higher ed, journalism, orthopedics. So there's a whole range of different disciplines there, and what we're wanting to bring out of that is transferable principles. So we're putting into practice our framework in those different contexts, and over 2 years we're going to be, hopefully, have some real hard evidence about how this can be used in different contexts. But we've already published, I think, probably over 100 articles on the 45 projects we've done, and they're all linked on those notes if you want to have a look. So it is transferable, I believe, but it is, as I said before, it's a journey, and it's a significant journey of change, culture change within each of those groups that you need to undertake. So it's not a quick fix.
Michael.
Thank you. Thank you. Institutional buy-in. This is a sector that is preoccupied with audit, compliance, assessment, validation. Any lessons along this path to keep industry and our beloved audit friends content?
Yeah, I guess it's finding the key. What is important for your manager, for your dean, for whoever it is you're trying to convince, get on board. In the university sector, it's research output. So because we're dealing with educational change, we're not dealing with medicine or whatever the context is, research output. What the research output that we're getting is the scholarship of teaching and learning. It's reflection on how this is changing teaching. And so we're actually getting significant research output based on changing pedagogy. And so the university is going, well, hey, suddenly we've got a whole lot of educators who are now research active that never were before. And they're going, this is great, we're going to support this. So it's finding the key. And because we're also working collaboratively across different faculties, across different departments, the university supports that because they want to see collaboration between the different faculties, which are normally these little individual empires. So trying to find what are the key things that you can sell this to whoever is in charge of the money on. My direct manager loves what we've been doing, and so he's been putting his money where his mouth is. We've been creating what we call MOAs, which are mobile AirPlay screens, which are portable TVs on wheels with an Apple TV on, which you can wheel around the place. They don't have a computer at all. All it is a mirror to your mobile device. So just like I was doing here to the projector, students can work in a team of 4 people around these mobile screens from their iPhone, from their iPad, from their Android phone. They don't have to lug a computer around, etc. And they're $2,500 each. And we've got a set of 12 of those out of our budget. So because they've seen the outcomes, they've seen that the significant changes happened, and once you've got some good case studies, that's a good foot in the door. So finding what the key, what do they want, what are they after, and giving it to them. I think in VET, because I used to work at a polytech, it was more about how to get students engaged with industry. And getting them being able to do things like site visits and recording those, building up a portfolio of their work, via a blog, etc., which they can then show to their employer. Another case which I haven't been involved in, but Selena Chan from Christchurch works with chefing students, and what they do is they're on site, they have either a webcam or they use their phone to record them baking a cake or making a loaf or whatever, and then they send that video to their tutor who marks it and gives them feedback on the process. And you can't fake that. So it gives the flexibility to the student to actually be in a real environment, not in a classroom making a cake, but actually at Baker's Delight or wherever they work, and being able to record that live, and for the tutor or lecturer to be somewhere else and mark that as well, give them feedback. So suddenly you get this really authentic situations.
John Vines.
I'm just wondering, how could you upskill the vet workforce in terms of their capacity to make use of these technologies? How would you do that?
Well, a start is getting people, the teachers, the technology. So what I do with all the projects is that we use our budget to buy iPhones and iPads for the people I work with, the lecturers. And for most of them, it's a significant upgrade from the device they've got, or their department doesn't see that as valuable, and so they don't buy them an iPhone unless they're a manager. So giving them the technology, getting them the experience of using these tools so they feel comfortable with it before you can start thinking, what's the pedagogy involved here, and how do we now use this to change assessment strategies rather than let's make our students write an essay on an iPad.
Most practitioners, though, would have an iPad or an iPhone.
A lot of them do these days, yes.
Yeah. So if you assume that everybody has the hardware, what's the process for upskilling in terms of the utilisation of these
I think getting people to think differently, getting them to go beyond their comfort zone. So instead of just loading your PowerPoint files from your USB stick onto your iPad, so getting them beyond PowerPoint and interacting live with the content, getting some interaction with the students like I did with Joyce. If I had more time, we'd do a lot more of that. But you've got to set that up. You've got to establish that. If you're working with a group of people over an amount of time, you can do a whole lot more interaction and collaborative stuff live in the environment.
And even just starting within your own, even just starting when you're running meetings, etc. Like if you're in a meeting and you've got a screen, use the Apple TV or a similar kind of thing to put your notes up there. Do some collaborative note taking in a thing like Evernote or like Google Docs. So you're actually starting to make it part of your work practice.
Yeah.
And that's then a way, together with your colleagues, and that's then a way to learn together and get more confidence.
I guess, it's knowing what is possible. So I guess you need people like me and Joyce, etc., who know how to push the boundaries, working with people and pushing them beyond their comfort zone. So, as I said, it's a process, and what we try to do is make that kind of them replicating. So as people come out of a community practice a year or 2 years later, hopefully they can become the hub of their own community practice and start becoming the technology steward in a different context.
Well, John, I think you've asked the perfect final parting question. So thank you for that. Tom, thank you very much for a fascinating talk, and sorry about the glitches.
That's all right. Thank you.